Mike Owens here, joined today by Andre Petroski, who returns to action next Saturday night, UFC Denver, facing Josh Fremd. Andre, always a pleasure, my man. How are things with you today?
I appreciate it, brother. Thanks for having me.
We were talking off camera. I know that you've got out to Denver a little bit early. How have your experiences been so far, and how are you adjusting to the altitude?
Good. So we came out 2 weeks early. Oh, my bad. We came out 2 weeks early to get acclimated. That's just what, my manager in the UFC recommended. So yeah, we came out early. We're staying in Colorado Springs. So we got to do some hiking. We climbed the Manitou incline on Monday. So yeah, it's been good. Getting some training in, getting the weight off.
I know that you guys from Philly see Atlantic City as almost a home base. So how does it feel going from a home, fighting almost your home area, to potentially enemy territory, facing a guy from the Colorado area?
Well, my opponent's actually from Pennsylvania. He's from Pittsburgh,
Yeah.
but nonetheless, yeah, I mean, I'm down. Whatever, I'm down to go into enemy territory and slaughter their guy. It's fine with me.
Do you like playing that role?
Honestly, usually I'm the hometown guy, but
Mm.
I would say there's a lot less pressure being, I don't have to sell tickets. I don't have to deal with all the bullshit of fighting at home. You know what I mean? It's awesome. It's great to be able to have your friends and family watch you. Um, but when they're coming to the arena, there's a lot more to it.
Mm.
Everybody wants tickets and stuff like that. So going away and not having to worry about all that is good too. It
Mm.
does take a lot of stress away from it.
How many people have you brought out for your camp? Is it a small camp? Is there a couple? How many have you brought out?
So I got my coach Eddie and his son Kenyell's here, and then my workout partner Sean O'Malley is here, and then Joe Pyfer is gonna be coming in on Monday.
I caught up with Joe on Monday. I think I was his first interview, so it was nice to speak to him before he was burnt out speaking to everybody else. But what did you make of your teammate and good friends win on Saturday night?
I think it's good. I think what you see with Joey, and I was saying this earlier, is like, he's really starting to settle into like competition and fighting. Like Joey's been in the gym since he was like a little kid. With his dad being the boxing coach and shit, but
Mm.
now but he didn't always compete. He wasn't always competing. So I think you're starting to see now where he's really getting comfortable with competition,
Mm.
not just being in the gym.
Is that something that you think most guys go through? Do you think there's a kind of switch that needs to be made there to going from, the best guy or one of the best guys in the gym to one of the best guys in the cage?
Absolutely. I just think that the fight is just so much different than practice. Like it's so hard to simulate the fight in practice because it's
Mm.
just so much different. Um, and so the only way to really like get that experience is by doing it. And
Mm.
so the more you do it, the more comfortable you get, the higher fight IQ you get, more aware you are, the more you're able to make adjustments mid-fight, mid-round. So it's definitely big.
Do you guys have a team captain down there in Philly?
I don't know. I don't know.
Because I was going to ask, because I think Joey said when I spoke to him that he views the team captain as Sean, given he's the highest ranked at the moment. What do you make of his matchup coming up against Gilbert Burns in September?
I think it's a really exciting matchup. I think
Mm.
that if you see the Sean that fought Gastelum, if
Mm.
he's if that Sean shows up, I think it's going to be a good night for him. But I mean, no, Gilbert Burns
Oh,
is
the
no
camera's gone.
slouch either. My bad. I got this propped up on.
No, you're
Yeah,
good.
Gilbert Burns is no slouch either. Like he can grapple, he can strike. He's kind of got it all. So it's a good matchup for sure. I think what's Gilbert, 5,
Six. Gilbert
6, and
six. Gilbert
Sean's
six. Sean's eight.
Sean's 8th. Yeah, so I mean, as far as Sean goes, it's kind of a win-win situation, you know?
Mm. Well, talking about your fight, how are your emotions ahead of your return? I mean, we've talked about your teammates, so we're here to talk about your fight, but how are you feeling ahead of your return?
I feel good. I mean, I'm excited. I just excited to show like all the things I've been working on. Really
Mm.
just looking to um make some highlights, you know?
Mm. What do you make of your
So
opponent?
what do I think of him?
Mm.
I think that he's dangerous, but I think he's got some glaring holes. Um, I trained with him before. I was actually out here 4 years ago. I spent like 2 months at Factory X. So I've trained with him before. So I kind of know what to expect. Not that like we haven't both gotten way better since then,
Mm.
but I have a good idea of the kind of range and what he brings to the table.
Is having previous training with someone who you're going to fight a good or a bad thing? Because obviously you have an idea of what he's going to bring, but also he has an idea of what you're going to bring. So does it kind of complicates things a little bit, doesn't it? I mean, in your mind, do you see it as a positive or a negative?
I think it's what you make of it for sure.
Mm.
Like I came from a wrestling background where um like I would compete against my teammates and my friends like often.
Mm.
So in wrestling it's like you don't like it's unheard of that you would say like, "Oh, I'm not going to wrestle them."
Mm.
Like even if it's your teammate, like we just still compete against each
Yeah.
other. You know what I mean? So in fighting, it's a little bit different. But yeah, so in wrestling, like I'm used to competing against guys that I've trained with and wrestled with and grew up with.
I feel like that's the difference between you guys over in the States with your collegiate wrestling and us guys and the rest of the world, but specifically the England because we don't have that collegiate
Yeah.
wrestling system. So the like what you're saying there about rematching guys and it being kind of normal, we don't have that same system. So I think it's almost a bigger thing over here when we see kind of previous training partners mixing it up.
Yeah. Yeah. I guess it's just not as big of a deal in wrestling.
What can you tell us about how those sparring sessions went? I had to ask. You know, I
uh,
had to ask.
well, I was excited when they offered me the matchup.
I've,
I think that like coming to Denver and
Hmm.
altitude has its risks for sure, but it was a matchup I couldn't say no to.
How much of an effect? I mean, I've never been that high, so how much of an effect does the altitude have on the 15 minutes in the cage?
I think that um in my experience, like I said, I was here for 2 months before.
Mm.
And like the first couple days, it has like a big it's like a big factor. But I do think that like the more time you spend here, it just kind of like diminishes.
Mm.
It doesn't become as big of a factor.
Have you ever considered doing like a camp out in somewhere like that? I mean, I know a lot of the boxers go out to, I think it's Big Bear in California, and some of the Mexican fighters spend time in Mexico City. Do you think it's almost a secret weapon to do a fight camp or a training camp in altitude in terms of your cardio?
I think that there's a lot of other factors that may be more important. Like
Yeah.
if you're going to sacrifice like having your training partners with you for going to altitude, I don't think it's worth it.
Mm.
I think the altitude is a factor, but like at the end of the day, like there's going to be a lot of other factors that go into it also. I think that you don't want to put too much emphasis on it.
Yeah, no, of course, of course. Um, Talking about this fight, I mean, what do you think a win does for you here?
Honestly, I'm not really trying to look too far ahead,
Mm.
but obviously I'm coming off of 2 losses. So
Mm.
the priority is to get back in the win column. But I do think that with a win here, I could get some interesting matchups next.
How do you reflect on the last couple of fights? I mean, I often quote this phrase from John Kavanagh: "You either win or you learn." With those last couple of fights, learning experiences for you, and if so, what can you take from them and use as positives?
Um, Definitely my last fight. The Malkoon fight was like, um, I mean, obviously it sucked because all three judges gave me the first round. I think I was winning the second round. So I was well on my way to victory. And not that that doesn't happen all the time. It does. But I think for me, it's a matter of like being more dangerous when I get hurt. You know what I mean? Like when I watch like some of the best guys were like Verdum or Oliveira, like Charles Oliveira is like the best at it. Like he'll get clipped and then he kind of like lulls you into danger. Like
Mm.
his guard's so good and he'll catch arm bars or whatever. And I Verdum was similar, where it's like, okay, you landed a nice shot. All right, now come on down. I think it's about just being more dangerous in those moments.
How much of that do you think can be learned, and how much do you think is kind of in the fighter?
I think that I think anything you can get better at anything if you
Yeah.
put enough focus into it. You know
Sure.
what I mean? But yeah, I mean the whole nature versus nurture is like the oldest argument. So
Mm.
yeah, it's both for sure.
So here's a question for you. If we talk about nature versus nurture, what's your kind of God-given talent in the sport? Is the one thing that you feel like you were blessed with that you can do that maybe not everyone else can?
I think that I can scramble with anyone. Like my scrambling, um, like I'm fast and I can scramble like with anyone as far as like in the grappling
Mm.
goes. And that's why I think like the Bo Nickal matchup would be such a good and exciting matchup because he's kind of the same way. Like he comes out really hot and he forces scrambles and he's super explosive. And like that's right up my alley.
Obviously, Bo's coming off the Cody Brundage fight at 300. What did you see in that fight, and what do you think they do with Bo next? It does feel like a lot of people are maybe calling for his name.
I think that he got exposed a little bit.
Hmm.
You know what I mean? Like
Yeah.
he got the finish, but obviously he was exposed a little bit. Like um, it wasn't as dominant of a performance as I think people expected.
Hmm.
And I mean, I don't know if that's going to shy him away from fighting grapplers in the future,
Hmm.
but I think that he does have a good coaches around him, and I think that they're going to be very careful about who they pick next.
Was that fight a case of Cody Brundage over exceeding expectations or Bo Nickal under exceeding expectations?
It's a good question. So I think that Cody, um, like has talent.
Hmm.
Like he's a Division II wrestler. Like he wrestled in college. He's got a bunch of fights. You know what I mean?
Hmm.
He's got experience. He's young. He's athletic. Um, so I think that that was the first grappler that we've seen Bo fight.
Yeah.
Before that, he hasn't really fought any grapplers. So um, it's just interesting. Yeah.
Here's a question I've got for you because after Saturday night, there's a debate after Alex Pereira's knockout over Yuri Prohaska. There's a debate about who should be pound for pound number one. So my question to you is who's number one pound for pound fighter in your mind?
um, when was the last time Jon Jones fought?
Jon Jones last fought in March of last year against Cyril Gane.
Yeah, I don't have a problem with that.
Hmm.
If I mean, I think Jon Jones is the greatest, is the pound for pound. Um, although yes, there at some point inactivity should be a factor, but I don't think 1 year is long enough.
Hmm. I agree.
So I would say Jon Jones. Yeah. I just don't think Islam has fought like uh big enough guys or like he hasn't beat the legends that Jon Jones has beaten.
Hmm.
Does that make sense?
Yeah. Yeah.
Like Um, like Oliveira's a good win. Um, Volkanovski is a great win, but Volkanovski was coming up a weight class and on short notice.
Mm.
So I don't think you can say he's the pound for pound GOAT when he just hasn't beat nearly the caliber of fighters that Jon Jones did.
Yeah, no, I agree. I agree. Well,
Um,
well, I want to turn the conversation back to you for one final question. You can be as brief or as detailed as you like with this one, but give me a walkthrough of the perfect fight day. So I'd like to know in your mind, as you visualize it, what happens when you wake up in the morning to when you go to sleep at night next Saturday.
I don't think that there such thing exists, honestly. I think fight day is a lot of just anticipation of
Mm.
like, I just want to fight. Let's fight. Like, let's,
Yeah.
but you can't. Like, you can't move time by faster. You know what I mean?
Mm.
So the perfect fight day is finding some joy and appreciating the whole process, not just being like, all right, let's just get to the fight. Let's get to the fight. Let's get to the fight. But being like, okay, this might be my last fight in Denver. I might never fight in Denver again. So
Mm.
like, let's enjoy being out here in the mountains. Like, let's learn to appreciate like the fact that like I literally get to wake up and go fight someone for a bag of money. Like, dude, that's a gift. You know what I mean?
Mm.
Like, not many people get to do that. So I think it's just finding some joys and some things to appreciate.
Well, I think that's the best place for us to end, and I think that's a lesson that everybody could take if they've got this far into this interview. So, Andre, always appreciate your time. Always good catching up. I'm glad that we finally did this because I know we've been going back and forth. Have a great and safe rest of camp, and look forward to seeing you back in action next Saturday.
Thank you, brother. Appreciate it.